Peg, and thanks to everyone for coming out. I just wanted to acknowledge that I picked up this program and I noticed that mine was without question the smallest. I'm talking about my bio. And so I thought I'd add just a couple of things. The first one is that, this is by way of an introduction. The first one is that if I had to add anything here, it would be that I've never had a cavity. I'm from Iowa, I was raised in Iowa, I still live there. And then the last thing I would tell you is that I was at a reading once, this wasn't too long ago, and I was wearing a shirt probably like this, and I had like the top two buttons unbuttoned, partly because, you know, it doesn't really fit around this area very well anymore, but also because it's a little cooler. And so this woman came up to me and she said, "My gosh, do you shave your chest?" And I said, "No, I'm completely bald, I've always been bald." So I don't have a single chest hair. That's the I would add that to my bio if I could. I'm just going to read the first few pages of the opening story in this collection. The collection is called "We Could Have Been Happy Here." The story I'm going to read, at least the first few pages, the story I'm going to read from is called "Nothing Prettier Than This." I've been farm sitting out at Lyle's for less than a day. This was late October, an Indian summer worth remembering. I brought along knitting supplies and a girl I used to know named Catherine. She was married to this guy, Ted, who had no clue she was there. She leaned against a fence post with the sun on her face, lighting her up like some ancient piece of liturgical artwork. "Those bitches are never coming back," Catherine said. She was referring to the cows. She was younger than me, maybe 29. "Have hope," I said. I put the emphasis on hope in a knowing way, and I got the response I was looking for. She smirked, shook her head. Catherine and I had never been an actual couple, but we shared a mutual distaste for the same things. Corporate ambition, fast food, oversized cars, reality TV, politics, and optimistic people. We tended to find each other at just the right moments, when we both needed someone to justify our misery. The two dairy cows I was supposed to keep track of had gone rogue. I milked them in the barn, and when I was leading them back to their pen, they trotted off. Catherine had witnessed the entire episode. At the time, she stood in the middle of the gravel driveway wearing her signature outfit, a purple engraved flannel and sweatpants. She sipped coffee. The autumn sun felt like a quilt. When I managed to lose the cow, she told me I was worthless. A few seconds later, she clarified, a worthless farmer. "Since when did you start explaining yourself?" I said. "Vincent," she said. She stepped toward me, set a delicate hand on my face. "I hope you don't love me, sweetheart." "Why would I?" I said. "When have I ever?" The dairy cow stood at the edge of the driveway, 30-some feet away, gnawing on tufts of grass. Catherine continued to lean against the wooden fence with a piece of grass in her mouth like it was the most natural thing. I jogged around, swung wide, hoping to flank from the rear and herd the cows back. I got close, but they just hopped off the gravel and into the dull green pasture that wasn't meant for their grazing, started chewing on more grass. "Come on, you motherfuckers," I said. Frustration rose up through my chest. I stuck my hand in my pocket and pulled out the shiny brown buckeye Catherine had given to me as a gift last fall. I meant to return the favor, but never got around to it. I pressed into the groove, just big enough for my thumb. The cows gawked at me with those velvety dark eyes. They didn't have names. Lyle's wife, Leslie, referred to them as number 11, number 12. Those classic-looking dairy cows with patches of black and white and the tail that whips back and forth. Leslie took excellent care of the cows, raised them on good grass, and their coats shine in the morning sun. "Here we go, girls," I said. I made a clicking sound with my mouth, similar to how Leslie called them. Didn't work. I sprinted in their direction with hope to scare them back. Didn't work. I sparked firecrackers I'd found in Lyle's junk drawer, tossed them in the grass behind the cows. Catherine held her hands over her ears. "Pop, pop, pop." The cow scampered away, but in the wrong direction, hauling ass toward the Catholic church that sat on the blacktop road 2 miles away. Lyle's driveway was 2 miles long with nothing in between. That church was the closest thing to the farm. Otherwise, it was just limestone bluffs and steep ravines. This was the driftless region of northeast Iowa. The land looks alarmingly different than the rest of the state, which isn't possessed by dramatic hills and valleys. Millions of years ago, the glacial drifts settled and leveled most of the Midwest flat as a concrete slab, but spared this region and left it full of mysteries. I started knitting 2 months prior to this at the recommendation of Catherine, who said it would calm my nerves while I tried to stay sober and contemplate ways of getting my wife and kids back. At home, in my apartment, I'd knit with earplugs in so I wouldn't have to hear people yelling in the halls or screwing next door. Knitting wasn't so bad. I planned on making my kids Christmas presents, hats, blankets, basic stuff. What should I do? I said to Catherine. Her dark hair was cut short, so it showed her neckline. Come sit by me. She sat down and crossed her legs. She unraveled the plastic grocery bag that held our knitting supplies. She handed me the blanket I was working on. It was her answer to almost everything. There are things about our time here that I'll never understand. Technology, for one. Fucking with food supplies, for another. All those chemicals and made-up ingredients destroying our physical and mental health so corporations can make ungodly profits and cloak it under the veil of feeding the world. Lyle taught me all that, and I think he's right. I lost my mother, dead, at age 54, and I'll never understand that either. She'd been sober for 10 years, a healthy person, smiled a lot, cared for people. Cancer consumed her spinal cord, her brain, died in a hospital bed. I never knew her like I wanted. I've dreamt of her every 6 weeks since she's been gone. In the dreams, I hug her like she's still alive, and then I wake up and cry all day. I tell myself I'm a grown-ass man, that I shouldn't be sobbing like that, but I miss her. She hardly knew my kids. First dream I had, she was there in the dining room. I said to her, Mom, where have you been? I've been looking all over for you. She didn't reply, just smiled. I looked behind me in the kitchen where all my family stood, and I said, you guys, there she is. She's right there. They all gave me that look that people have been giving me since I was in middle school, like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And then I turned around to prove she was there, and she was, but right away, she started shrinking. I stood up from the dining room. Mom, I said, don't do that. I stood over her, looking down, pleading with her, don't do that. But then she was gone. I woke up after that, agitated. All day, it was like being hung over, only worse. My eyes were practically swollen shut like a 10-round prize fighter. All day long, my shoulders would shake up and down, and I'd squeeze out tears between my swollen eyes. At the time, Catherine was the only one in the world I trusted with this. She never betrayed me or what I shared about my mother. And a person who sits and listens to you, I mean really listens. Is there anything in this world more valuable? Don't rush through it, Catherine told me about my dreams, my mother. I was standing next to her, watching the cows. Our knitting supplies lay in clumps at our feet. Catherine rolled a joint on top of the fence post, smoked some, and passed it. I took a small amount and passed it back. Your kids doing well? She said. I've got them next weekend. I reached into my pocket for the buckeye and held it in my hand, rubbed it. They're getting big, you know, sassy and shit. What are you reading these days, Vincent? It was the kind of question only Catherine would ask. Knitting for dummies, I said. She managed to chuckle. I wanted to tell her about the books I'd been reading about building a yurt, but for now, I was going to keep that to myself. Every time I shared one of my dreams, they'd seem to instantly dissolve. We stood there for a while, not saying anything. Catherine slipped into one of those satisfying stares. I looked around us, the bluffs and trees and pasture that barricaded the land. I refocused on Catherine, who squinted into the horizon, eyelashes meshed together. This is the freshest air in the world, I said. Nothing prettier than this, she said. I think I'll stop there. Thanks, folks.